Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues. Here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So if you're just joining us, this is our kind of end of the year show where we talk about what has happened, where we are now, and what's going to happen next year in this real estate market, which is obviously very tough to predict. But we've got some really good indicators. We've got some good news coming out of the Federal Reserve that interest rates are probably going to be coming down. So I think there's some glimmer of hope for folks that have been priced out of the market, and there are frankly a lot of them. So we're sharing this news on this show, but of course you're going to have specific questions about what this all means for you, for your specific plan, for your home, for your ability to buy. Maybe you're looking at investing in real estate. Maybe you have some properties that you want to have managed professionally by a property management company, which we offer. All of these things we can certainly help you with. The number to call is 843-800-0065. You can call or text me at that number. It comes straight to me. 843-800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. So, we were talking about kind of what led us up to where we are now and some of the changes that we locally have experienced and the fact that, prices have gone up 50, 60, 70 plus % in some areas of Charleston. And then, of course, interest rates went from 3% up to 8%, back down to 6.75-ish%, which is where they are now, which is, by the way, very credit score driven. I mean, there's obviously several factors that go into determining what your interest rate is going to be. But the good news is they've come down significantly. They've come down almost an entire percentage point over the past 30 days. So some really good news there, some optimistic news there. Still not enough for homes to be classified as, affordable, right? So, generally speaking, what happened and the mentality of people over the past few years, especially as it relates to really low interest rates, is people said, well, why not? Why not move now? If we can reduce our monthly expenses and buy something maybe even a little bit nicer than what we have now, or in a better area, or that has the features that we need and want, well, then let's go for it. We were planning on moving in the next few years anyways. Might as well just do it now. So we had a ton of people, not only that just decided to move to Charleston from other areas of the country, other areas of the world, but we also had a bunch of people that said, well, we might as well take advantage of this environment and move now. So we had all of these transactions that basically got packed into a 2-year period. We were borrowing transactions from the future, in other words. And that's what created, in addition to a very low interest rate environment, this massive amount of appreciation that we've been talking about. Now, so the thinking used to be, well, why not? And now the thinking is, well, why should I? It doesn't make sense. I've got a 3% or a 2.5% or a 2%. I've heard of people having interest rates in the ones, which is so awesome. I do recall talking about this at the end of the year, I think maybe 2 years ago, at the end of 2021, where I was essentially telling you guys that, look, you're not really going to win. If you're a buyer, you're not really going to win against the seller, right? Everybody wants to win in their transaction. They want to feel like they beat up the other side of the transaction more than they got beaten up themselves, right? Or the other way of looking at it, or a way that someone can classify a good deal, so to speak, is that if both parties are somewhat unhappy, then it seems to be a pretty amicable transaction, right? Both people are getting most of what they want, but giving up a little bit of what they want. In other words, that's kind of a fair negotiation. I don't necessarily agree with that. That's not what I strive for with my clients. But what I was telling folks at the end of 2021 is that you're not going to go and beat up a seller and get a home for large percentages off of the asking price. That's not who you should be competing with, in a way of thinking. You're going to win against the bank. You're going to win because your payments are going to be locked in at a ridiculously low amount for the next 15, 20, 30 years, depending upon what kind of mortgage product you selected. And so you have all these folks now that are saying, well, my payments are, $2,500 a month for this beautiful home. If I go and move up a step into the next, home, next bracket home, bigger, better home, my payments jump up, they double. It doesn't make sense for me to do that, or I just can't afford to do that. And the big thing that we've been talking about on this show, the major things really have been interest rates, inventory, pricing, and ultimately affordability, right? Affordability is still not where we need it to be. Every month, the Charleston Tri-Town Association of Realtors comes out with local housing affordability index numbers. And essentially what that means is so what you strive for is 100, meaning the median income in our area is 100% of what is necessary to afford the median priced home in our area, given prevailing interest rates and a 20% down payment. And that's where the data gets a little lost on folks at times, is because we're factoring in a 20% down payment. For all those folks that are doing FHA or VA with low down payment options, affordability is even worse. And on top of that, you have to tack on private mortgage insurance. So right now, at the end of November, we have an affordability index of 68, meaning our local median income is only 68% of what is necessary to afford the median priced home in our market. In other words, affordability is not good, and it's dropped about 7% from this time last year. Even with, and that doesn't take into account what we've seen this month in the form of interest rate reductions, right? Mortgage rate reductions. So that number should go up a little bit, which is a good sign. But at the end of the day, the market is still unaffordable for a large population of people. If we look at a few other areas or other stats, so to speak, that help us understand our local market, we can look at things like, well, how many homes have we put on the market this year in comparison to the same amount of time last year? Well, year to date, we've put about 20,000 homes on the market. This time last year, we'd put about 23,000 homes on the market. So that's down. Pending sales or properties that go under contract, that's down about 9%. Closings, the people that are actually closing and moving, that's down 16%. It's taking almost twice as long to sell properties. Obviously, the affordability is what it is. It's still low. It will remain low, I think, into 2024. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But we also look at months supply of inventory. And that's kind of how we measure the health of a real estate market. Meaning, if we have 6 to 8 months worth of supply, generally speaking, that's what tells us it is a balanced market. There's no real pressure on pricing. There's no pressure on supply and demand. It's just a normal, balanced market where properties appreciate kind of in line with the inflation rate, usually 2-3% a year. Okay. Well, if I look at some of the different areas of Charleston and the month's supply of inventory, there are only 1, maybe 2 markets that I would consider to be a normal market. Everything else is a seller's market. But if you look at West Ashley, inside 526, 1.9 months. West Ashley outside 526, 1.2 months. James Island, 1.7 months. Johns Island, 2.2 months. North Charleston, 1.9. Mount Pleasant, 1.5. Somerville, 2 months. Downtown Charleston, 3.5 months. Ladson, 1.4 months. Goose Creek, 1.9. Monk's Corner, 2.1. Hanahan, 1.8. Daniel Island, 2.1. I mean, all of these markets are still seller markets because of the lack of inventory. And frankly, what's been really interesting is that even with this massive increase in interest rates that we've seen over the course of the past 20 months, it hasn't slowed down pricing. It's certainly affected the number of transactions we've had, but it hasn't really slowed down our local pricing, because as of this month, the median sales price is up 1.4% from this same time last year. Our median sales price is basically $405,000. And at the end of last year, it was $398,000, $399,000. So interesting in that a lot of people obviously have been sidelined by the increase in interest rates, the increase in prices, but the music hasn't stopped playing. People are still moving, people are still transacting, and it's this low inventory environment that's holding prices up. So then that begs the question, well, what happens when interest rates start to come back down? Because it's been said that, Federal Reserve is going, a lot of people are anticipating 4 rate reductions next year. They're going to slowly bring those rates back down. And this is a little bit of a precursor into what I think is going to happen next year. And so we're going to take a little break. When we come back, I'm going to give you an outline of what I think is going to happen from multiple different data sources, and then my own opinion, of course. And then I'm going to tell you what I think buyers and sellers should be avoiding in the way of mistakes. Okay. I do think that there are some mistakes that folks are going to make. Obviously, you're responsible for your own decisions. I'm just going to weigh in on what I think people might miss next year. So that'll be something to make sure you tune in for. And remember, if you can't stay for the entire hour of this show on this radio station, please understand we put all these videos on YouTube. They're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I mean, all you have to do is Google us and you'll find our information. But if you want to reach out to me personally, you want to have a chat about the real estate market and about what your plan could look like and how we can help you with that. I will say, I mean, we've got commission rates as low as 1%. We've got all kinds of incentives with regard to buying and selling with us, like helping you move at no cost to you. We've got a bunch of different ways of helping, right? So reach out to us, learn more about how we can provide you with some of those incentives. And then, of course, apply our transactional experience of 1,500 transactions here in this local market, about $1 billion worth of real estate sold, to help you navigate through this process in this market, because there's a lot of money to be won or lost, I think, depending upon your strategy and ultimately who is helping you get to the finish line. So if you want to reach out to me, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Our website is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And you can always send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-888-0065. That's 843-888-0065.